All right, welcome back to Right on the Edge. And in this episode here, or this little video, yeah, I'm doing a video here. I wanted to talk about the Green River Killer, which is one of the cold cases here in Washington. For over 40 years, the Green River Killer has haunted, I guess, the minds of investigators and families alike. Uh, so why don't you just join me here as I look up a video to watch about some of the unsolved aspects of this case. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Granted, I'm into this type of stuff, so it's fun for me. I'm just interested in this. I like to know how people think and why. So, without further ado, I will search for a thing on the. Oh, excuse me, man. I've been having hiccups recently on the Green River Killer. Well, there's a movie too. I have to watch out for that. So let's find a nice, concise, short video. I like watching. I like watching you. So let's do. Oh, that one's 20. Let's do the infographics. I like infographics,
Serial killers.
and
Every true crime buff knows all about them,
I'm sure
and
a
they
lot of
often
people do.
debate who the worst of the worst actually is. Ted Bundy's trial was probably the most highly publicized in history, and Jeffrey Dahmer's twisted appetites were tabloid fodder.
Both those guys. I mean, all these guys are awful, right? It's like having a contest of different shades of shit. Like, it's they're all shit. They're all bad. So, yeah.
For years. Neither of them, however, reached the shocking number of murders that one serial killer reached in the Pacific Northwest. He
Wow.
stalked Washington for decades,
Wow.
leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. The media called him the Green River Killer, and he almost got away with everything. It was the early 1980s in King
That makes
County,
sense.
Washington.
He almost got away. So they did actually catch the guy, but why was he called the Green River Killer?
And horror was about to come to the winding Green River. The long river snakes from the rural areas of northwest Washington to the bustling city of Seattle and forms the approach to the former logging area of Stampede Pass. But for a group of children playing along the river on July 15, 1982, it would be the end of innocence. They discovered the body of Wendy Caulfield, a 16-year-old from nearby Puyallup, floating in the river.
Puyallup. 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 I think Puyallup is probably right.
An investigation quickly
That's
began,
crazy,
but no
though.
leads were found to her killer. Wendy was likely the first to die, but she would be far from the last. It was just over a month later
So she was like the tester victim.
when 4 more bodies of young women would be found in the Green River. It was clear the Pacific Northwest had a serial killer on its hands.
Wow.
A massive task force was formed, the biggest since
I like how all the guys' heads are like, yes, we're doing our jobs.
the hunt for Ted Bundy in the previous decade. Many more bodies would follow, all of them young women, many of them runaways and sex workers. But it would be a long time before the police
Runaways, sex workers, damn.
had answers, despite them intersecting with the killer many times in the decades that followed. Who was this serial killer striking fear in the whole region?
So they actually saw him multiple times. Like, so it wasn't, they didn't just find him. They had encountered this guy multiple times, just didn't know it was him or didn't have the evidence.
His name was Gary Ridgway, and he was one of the most
Gary.
effective and dangerous killers the country had ever seen. Born in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1949, Gary Ridgway seemed like a normal boy, but under the surface there were early signs that he was disturbed. He was a middle child with a strict, domineering mother. He struggled in school, battling with dyslexia, and was
These are all like early signs of a dude with issues, dysfunctional family, dyslexia, so he's having a hard time learning, he doesn't fit in. This causes him to be shunned, and then they tend to like live in
held
their own
back
head.
a year in high school. Evidence later showed his IQ was only in the 80s, but there were
I mean, you don't have to be very smart to kill a person.
darker signs. His father was an angry man, a bus driver who frequently complained about sex workers along his route. Ridgway had a problem with bedwetting, and his mother humiliated him
Wow.
after every episode. Gary Ridgway's journey to becoming a killer would begin early.
Dude, all you had to do was to be a decent human being. Like, Most kids grow out of bedwetting.
When he was still a teenager, Ridgway liked hurting things from an early day, starting with shooting birds with a BB gun. But he had a taste for bigger prey, and one
That's pretty normal.
day when he was still in high school, he approached a random 6-year-old boy with a knife and stabbed him deep enough to injure the boy's liver. The boy, who asked to remain anonymous,
Holy shit. Holy shit, why did you kill me?
remembers asking Ridgway, "Why did you kill me?" He survived but spent several weeks in the hospital. Ridgway was never caught for the attack, and the victim realized years later that he had almost become the first murder victim of the Green River Killer. What made Ridgway so dangerous? He knew how to bide his time. After his first foray into attempted murder, Ridgway seemed to be slipping.
So you just kind of, they always build up to it, so that was probably his building phase, which means there's probably murders that he was never, there's probably murders that he did that weren't normal for him, like outside of the normal ones. There's probably more murders than we know. That's what I'm trying to say. There's probably a lot more murders that we don't know of.
Back into normal life. He graduated high school, married his high school girlfriend Claudia Craig, and joined the Navy. It was 1969 and he
Wow.
was soon sent to Vietnam. But while wartime was a formative experience for many young men, for Ridgway it would lead him further down the path to becoming a serial killer.
Yeah, he was enjoying himself. Yeah, probably one of the only ones there, like thinking, man, this is a great time.
Like many young soldiers, he had frequent sex with local sex workers, contracting gonorrhea. This enraged him, but not enough to stop doing it. And when he
It made him mad. Yeah, that's what you get,
returned
buddy.
from Vietnam, he discovered his wife had been having an affair, leading to the end of their marriage. The
Wow.
combination of Ridgway's resentment toward his mother and his wartime experiences were about to collide. He
Jesus
soon married
Christ.
again, a woman named Marcia Winslow, and had a son. But she noticed disturbing signs of the monster he would become. Sometimes he was pious, obsessively reading the Bible aloud and preaching to the neighbors. Other times he would become inexplicably
So he's
violent,
like-
even
so he's
putting Marcia in a
crazy.
chokehold
So
at
he's-
one point. He would get randomly
Crazy on top of it. Oh, you piece of- Die, you stupid mosquito. Die.
emotional, crying during
Alright.
sex. And if there was one thing he loved talking about,
Crying during sex. Okay. Maybe it was just that bad. No, okay. Obviously, dude's a monster. Sorry, jokes aside.
it was sex. He would frequently demand it, sometimes in a public place, and he was obsessed with the local sex workers. He seemed to hate them and want them out of his neighborhood, but he couldn't seem to stop patronizing them. His
What? What a guy. Stop it, you guys. Get out of my neighborhood. Same guy. Here's $50. You know. Give me the old steamer or whatever people buy.
His anger and obsession built until it exploded in a cocktail of violence. No one knows why Gary Ridgway decided to start killing, but when he did, he acted like he had been planning it all his life.
When
He
did
stalked
he?
Seattle and Tacoma,
Like I said, it was probably like a build-up, man. He probably built himself up to stabbing that kid as a kid. When he went to army, he kind of really released some of that pent-up like aggression, and then he built himself back up towards it again.
primarily among Pacific Highway South, where young sex workers and teen runaways could easily be found. He had a move, a picture of his son, that he always kept on him. He would introduce himself to the woman he had decided to target, showing them a picture of his son to get them to trust him and let down their defenses. He'd invite them into his truck. It would be the last decision they ever made.
You know, last decision they ever made. Can't really blame them for just trying to live, but their life was full of bad decisions. He was just the last one.
Sometimes Ridgway would drive them home, sometimes he would drive them to the woods, sometimes he'd decide to do the deed right there. But what came next was always the same, and his chosen victim would have sex, and midway through, he would make his move. He wrapped his forearm around their neck and pulled as hard as he could, killing them from strangulation. He would then drive them to
Wow.
a dumping ground
Wow. So he used a forearm, not the hands.
and hide their bodies. He started in the Green River, but eventually started dumping bodies in more wooded areas and near the local airport. When asked how many young women he had killed over the years by investigators later, he would simply answer, "I lost count." Despite his low IQ, competent killer, he knew exactly how to hide kills, spreading out the bodies and transporting some across state.
Well, You don't have to be that smart. Like I said, you don't have to be super smart to be a bad person, but Jesus Christ, man. That's a lot, right?
Lines. He would sometimes contaminate the bodies with pieces of evidence he had taken off other people, like gum, cigarettes, and even written notes. He would sometimes pose the bodies naked before burying them.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So he was smart enough to hide other people's DNA on them.
And he remembered where every body was, because sometimes he liked to return to them and dig them up so he could engage in necrophilia. It seemed like the perfect crime wave, but
Holy shit, man. You couldn't, it wasn't bad enough you did it once. You had to go back and then do it again. Ugh. Ugh. Nasty. You nasty fuck. Yeah, that's gross. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what. I don't know how people like this think, and I don't think I want to in this case.
not quite. The police were onto Gary Ridgway surprisingly early. It was April 30th, 1983, and Ridgway had just taken his latest victim, Marie Malvar. But Malvar didn't vanish unnoticed. Ridgway's pickup truck had been sighted by her boyfriend, and the man chased down Ridgway, reporting him to the police.
That's crazy. So this dude's like, bro, you just let her go. Well, I mean, in this case, it's a killer, but you know what I mean. Like, don't date a hoe, man. Don't date a hoe. It's crazy. Just don't do it.
The police interrogated him, and Ridgway denied any involvement in Malvar's disappearance. They let him go, but it wouldn't be the last time he had contact with the Green River Task Force. But the next time, he would come looking for them. It was May 1984, and the toll of victims.
Wait, he went to look for them next time. So the first time they caught him because, you know, witness or whatever. And the second time he went to them. Did he turn himself in, or what's going on here?
Victims kept on rising, with 42 bodies being found in the area. The task force received a call from Gary Ridgway claiming to have information. He was still on the radar of the officers after their last encounter, and they made him pass a polygraph test before they'd work with him. He passed, denying any involvement in the killings. This would make experts later think he was a sociopath who could lie so convincingly.
The fact is, those things can be fooled very easily, especially if you're a person that doesn't feel bad about what you're doing, because that's like monitors your, it's like both heart rate and the twitches in your hands, you know what I mean?
He wouldn't be flagged by a lie detector.
It's like stuff
the
like
task
that.
force would look at Ridgway again, but he would keep on slipping away. As the bodies kept showing up near Green River, the task force became desperate. Experts Robert Keppel and David Reichert, both of whom had been involved in previous hunts for serial killers, even interviewed Ted Bundy on death row for his insight into the Green River killer's psychology. He identified many of Ridgway's patterns and told him to stake out one of the graves to see if Ridgway returned. But Ridgway was good at biding his time.
Wow, so Ted Bundy was like, this dude's likely fucking the victims again. And these cops are like, really? Ugh. And then they had to go hide in these bushes and watch for him to go and fuck a victim. But this guy was like, nah, dude, I'm gonna wait until that victim's nice and gross. Gross.
While many serial killers escalate until they get caught, Green River had a pattern and he stuck to it. His third wife, Judith Mawson, who he married in 1985, realized years later that he'd been pulling off killings right under her nose. When the carpet disappeared, she didn't give it a second thought until investigators...
Wait a minute. So this weird motherfucker got married 3 times. And his wife was just like, wow, new carpet. That's normal. Yeah, he just changes the carpet a lot. Did you ever see a murder? No, but I saw a suspicious looking body-shaped trash bag that he said was a tree. Not...
told
That's
her he had
wild.
likely removed it to wrap up a body. His irregular working hours were a cover for him leaving to hunt his victims and dispose of their bodies. She was contacted by authorities in 1987 as they renewed their interest in Ridgway and took DNA samples from him, but she never had even heard of the Green River Killer.
Wow, this guy managed to marry the only person, like IQ-wise, stupider than he was. Just goes to show you there really is someone for everyone. And in this case, in the worst possible way.
This was also the period where Ridgway killed the fewest women, and Mawson claimed he had never been violent with her. Was he truly in love and able to suppress his darkest instincts, or was he just waiting to strike again? Gary Ridgway's reckoning would have to wait more.
Seems like, well, yeah. I doubt that he stopped his pattern, but maybe he did like her. You never know.
More than a decade when the DNA samples collected in 1987
Maybe.
were finally analyzed by
Maybe she didn't judge him crying during sex, and she was like, "It's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna cry too." And maybe they cried together during sex, and then he was like, "Yeah, I don't really want to murder somebody right now."
a state-of-the-art DNA lab. This time they turned up a match and the task force had finally cornered the Green River Killer. Ridgway was keeping a low profile working at a truck factory, and his co-workers must have been very confused when their workplace turned into the biggest police raid the country had seen in a long time. They swept in and arrested Ridgway, charging him with 4 of the murders, only the first they had been able to link
Only the 4 they could find evidence on, apparently, that wasn't like contaminated in some way.
him to. It was going to be the trial of the century, or would it? When a prolific serial killer is arrested,
would
most
it?
would expect him to be held in the most high-security prison possible. That wasn't the case here, as a little over a year into his pre-trial detention, Ridgway was moved to a
Wild.
medium-security prison. Soon it was announced that he had reached a plea deal with prosecutors. In exchange for the death penalty being taken off the table, Ridgway would plead guilty, receive life in prison, and name every single one of his victims to
That's the weirdest plea deal I've ever seen in my life. That's crazy. They don't give drug users that sort of plea deal, man. I was watching some cases the other day where they give like this dude that was just doing, I don't know what he was doing, some drug anyway. They gave him like 80 years. 80 years. This dude's been murdering people for 3 decades or some shit. And he's just like, well, you know, since you're a veteran and you cry during sex, here you go. Have a fucking plea deal. Isn't that wild?
give closure to the families. The true scale of the Green River Killer's crimes were about to be revealed. In total, Gary Ridgway pled guilty to the murders of 48 women, making
48 women. Holy shit. Ugh. Took him so long to get caught.
him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. He was sentenced to 48 consecutive life sentences
Well, he wasn't killed though. He just sat in jail his whole life.
plus 10 years for evidence tampering for every victim. He won't be getting out of prison ever again unless somehow he discovers the fountain of youth in his prison toilet. With the new evidence he gave them in prison interviews, police were able to track down the bodies of many of his carefully hidden victims around Washington and near Portland, Oregon, giving closure to grieving.
Wow. He actually remembered all the places. I don't think he was as stupid as people say he was. Like, maybe he wasn't, like, intelligent in the normal sense. Fucking mosquitoes, man. They're fucking everywhere. No wonder. Damn mosquitoes. Fucking hate those things.
Families decades later. So is Gary Ridgway the worst serial killer in American history? That depends on who you ask. Ridgway's confirmed 48 killings puts him at the top tier, and he's confessed to killing 71 women in total,
He's-
although many of the other
He's pretty high up there. I don't think he's actually the number-wise. I don't think he's the top. But, my God, that's really high. And he... 71 altogether. I'm just gonna say, I'd probably believe him.
others are unconfirmed. He continues to be cooperative with investigators as they look into missing person cases from the time period he may be linked to, but he's not the only serial killer who claims to have
I'll bet again, I actually liked my roommate out. Happens to the best of us.
death toll. Samuel Little, another prolific serial killer doing life in prison in California, traveled the country weaving a career of mayhem from 1970 to 2012, constantly in and out of prison
42 years. Jesus Christ. It takes forever for these fuckers to be caught sometimes.
for crimes ranging from drunk driving to armed robbery. He was convicted of only 4 murders in California and Texas. The FBI thinks differently. The federal investigators have linked Little to 50 murders around the country, which would eclipse Ridgway's mark if proven accurate. But many of those killings happened decades ago and don't match a specific serial killer's MO. Little also targeted women, but didn't have as uniform a technique as Ridgway. If you ask Little, he'll tell you a different story. He boasts killing over 90 people, but many cannot be confirmed. So who is the worst serial killer in American history? Both men are doing life in prison. Both
Layers
claim
of
many
shit,
more
man.
killings than
Layers
they've
of
been convicted
shit.
of.
They're
Both
both
are in their
shit.
senior years, and the odds are the truth will go with both men to their graves. If you ask the people around the Green River in Washington, they'll tell you that Ridgway's reign of terror is something they'll never forget. Want to know more
That's
about one of the
probably
most
true.
dangerous serial killers in American history? Check out America's Most Evil Serial Killer, Ted Bundy. And for one that was
Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. Not the situation, just like interesting history. Very interesting history. Like I wonder how these things develop with him. Childhood trauma. Probably, right? Childhood trauma. Um yeah, who knows? But hey, if you like that, you like to see some more of this, or just see my reactions in general to stuff, subscribe, leave a comment below somewhere, and yeah, I'll watch what you send me. Now, if I get 100 comments all at once, might not watch them all, but hey, I'll watch as many as I can. I'll make as many videos as I can. But on that note, I hope you all have a good night or a good day, depending on when you watch this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.